Good morning, class 11th. Today we will begin with a new chapter from your ECOS book of short stories, collection of ISC, collection of short stories. The first lesson, Salvatore, which is written by William Somerset Maugham. Now, before beginning the story, we should at least know something about the writer and how he was. What are the things which had set the mood of the writer to write such a nice, beautiful story? Now, William Somerset Maugham was born on January 25th, 1874 at the British Embassy in Paris, France. So he was born in Paris, France, children, and it was the British Embassy. He was the fourth son born to socialite and writer Edith Mary and Robert Ormond Maugham, a lawyer for the British Embassy. So his father was working as a lawyer there in France for the British Embassy. So he was altogether an English writer, children. He was a British playwright, novelist and short story writer who became an orphan by the age of 10. So he lost his parents at the age of 10. So see how the situations, the conditions, the life change for this writer. So that's why, children, Salvatore is also a story of a boy, of a young boy, and then how his life goes on, he has written. So he must have confronted with that type of condition. That's why he could just jot down such a beautiful story, such a sensitive story, children. Maugham attended King's School in Canterbury before travelling to Heidelberg University in Germany at the age of 16 to study literature and philosophy. So he did such a hard work, children. He again went to the King's School in Canterbury, then travelling to Heidelberg University in Germany. And it's easy there, children, in European countries, children, altogether they are very small countries. So people, they keep on travelling here and there, and they go for settling there, and they just go for earning their bread at a very early age. So especially these Europeans and these foreigners, children. So at the age of 16 to study literature and philosophy back in England, and after a short stint as an accountant, he just was also working as an accountant. Short stint means for a short period of time he worked as an accountant. He studied medicine at St. Thomas Hospital in London. Then he also studied about medicine, children. Maugham had an interest in making career in writing. Thus, with the publication of his first novel, Lisa of Lambeth, 1897, which sold out so rapidly that he gave up medicine to write full time. And he had the very liking and interest in writing, children. So, in the very first early years, children, he was famous and famous writer, and the people liked to read his novels or the write-ups. Then, and mostly he was writing about ladies, children. It was 10 years later in 1907 that his successful play Lady Frederick was published. Then Magician, a supernatural thriller in 1908. Then his other major works are Of Human Bondage, The Moon and Sixpence, 1919, The Paint and Wheel, and The Razor's Edge. Now, Salvatore by W. Somerset Maugham sketches the character of Salvatore as a man personifying the quality of goodness. So, see here, he has just portrayed his own early childhood, children, when he lost his parents. So he has personified the qualities of goodness in Salvatore, the main character. Salvatore is the portrait of an ordinary fisherman who possesses nothing in the world except goodness. He falls ill with rheumatism, from which he never recovers, and the girl he loves abandons him, but he never complains and accepts the life happily as it comes to him. So, children, you will come to know about this lesson properly when we will start with our explanation. Now, here he falls ill with rheumatism. Rheumatism is a disease that causes stiffness and pain in the muscles and swelling and pain in the joints, children. So he too fell sick because of it, and he never recovers from it. And the girl he loves abandons him, but he never complains and accepts the life happily as it comes. So, children, we will begin with the lesson. First very page, that is page number 1 in your Ecos, the book you have, page number 5. I wonder if I can do it. The first very line, I wonder if I can do it. The writer has used this line properly, children, whenever you are writing an essay. So begin with such kind of lines, children, whenever you are writing essay or stories or all. You can learn from all these great writers. I wonder if I can do it. I knew Salvatore first when he was a boy of 15 with a pleasant face. So the writer is saying, the author is saying that he just knew Salvatore first when he was a very small young boy of 15. You must have understood, children, he has just portrayed himself in place of Salvatore. A laughing mouth and carefree eyes, and he had a beautiful smiling face and carefree eyes. He never was full of tension about life. He had a very carefree eyes and he accepted life as it came. He used to spend the morning lying about the beach with next to nothing on, and his brown body was as thin as a rail. So he never wore anything. His brown body could be seen. It was not white as the European children, it was brown in color, and he just kept on lying about the beach with next to nothing on. He never had any cloth piece on his body and was as thin as a rail. Rail are those bars, children, long bars like that. He was also tall and he was very thin. He was full of grace, but children, he was full of grace, very active. He was in and out of the sea all the time, swimming with the clumsy, effortless stroke common to the fisher boys. That is, he kept on being in the sea as the fishermen boys they are, just in and out of the sea, and he used to just never, effortless stroke means he never used to make any efforts to swim there. He already knew swimming without any movement of the hands and all. He just, sometimes he was lying on the water, and with his very light movements of his hand or legs and feet, nobody could ever imagine that whenever the people saw, they thought that a type of a corpse or a dead body is just swimming or floating over the river. Effortless swimming. He never made any efforts because he already knew, he was trained and he was already knew how to swim, lying there on the water. And it is very common among the fisher boys. They are so much trained. They, from their very early childhood, they keep on swimming and they are used to the sea world, children. Scrambling up the jagged rocks on his hard feet, for except on Sundays he never wore shoes. So he kept on climbing over the rocks, big mountain rocks, children, on his hard feet. And his feet had become very coarse and hard because of those jagged rocks. They were the rocks, very those hillside rocks were very sharp and they had uneven edges, children. Their surface was very uneven, very coarse, so it made his feet very hard and coarse. For except on Sundays he never wore shoes. So the writer wants to tell that only on Sundays when he went to the church he wore the shoes, otherwise he never wore the shoes. He was barefooted. He would throw himself into the deep water with a cry of delight, and he loved to go inside the water, children. He loved to swim there at the sea. His father was a fisherman who owned his own little vineyard, and Salvatore acted as nursemaid to his two younger brothers. So his father was a fisherman and he had a small little vineyard where the grapes are grown, children. And he had two younger brothers and he was the nursemaid. He was the one to take care of his younger brothers. He shouted to them to come inshore when they ventured out too far and made them dress when it was time to climb the hot vine-clad hill for the frugal midday meal. So he shouted. These younger brothers also went there to the sea, and they also were swimming are taking bath in the sea. So he went there with them. He just called them back when they ventured out too far in the sea. He was there to take care of them, and he brought them back, and he made them dress again at the shore, at the beach. And then they both, three of them, climbed the hot wine-clad hill, that is the hill which is clad with wine. That is the climbers, the grapes climber. It is green and clad, means over everywhere in the hills you could find the wine. For the frugal midday meal, that is the hot midday meal, they used to go home. They used to climb the hill and they used to go home. But boys in those southern parts grow apace, and in a little while he was madly in love with a pretty girl who lived on the Grand Marina. So the boys, the author wants to tell us that the boys of those southern parts of Europe, children, they grow apace. Apace means at a very fast speed they grow up, they become mature. And he too grew up, and in a little while he was madly in love with a pretty girl who lived on the Grand Marina. She had eyes like forest pools. Here, children, you will see all those your similes, the poetic device, simile, figure of speech. Simile is used again in the first para. Also, he is describing his physical appearance, Salvatore's, and here he is. The author is trying to describe this girl, pretty girl. She had eyes like forest pools and held herself like a daughter of the Caesars. So he has compared this beautiful girl, that is the for whom I think Salvatore was madly in love with this pretty girl. He is describing her and comparing her like a daughter of the Caesars. They were affianced, so they were promised to marry each other. They were betrothed children. They had promised to marry each other, but they could not marry till Salvatore had done his military service. And it was written, or might be they had promised, that he had to he had to serve, he had to go for his military service, then only they could be married. And when he left the island, which he had never left in his life before, to become a sailor in the navy of King Victor Emmanuel, he wept like a child. So he never wanted to leave that island, children. He never wanted to go away from his hometown, and he wept like a child when he had to go for the training of a sailor in the navy of King Victor Emmanuel. It was hard for one who had never been less free than the birds to be at the beck and call of others. So it was hard for one who had never been less free. He was very, very free than the birds, to be at the beck and call of others. He can't just go for listening to others' orders. That is to, whenever they will call, he has to be there to listen to their call. It was harder still to live in a battleship with strangers instead of in a little village cottage among the vines. So it was harder for him to live among the strangers, soldiers, those who are there in the battleship, instead of living in a beautiful village, beautiful green village among the vines. And when he was ashore, to walk in noisy, friendless cities with streets so crowded that he was frightened to cross them. So he again thought about the cities where they will go, and they will when they will go and they will harbor at some or the other shore or beach, especially the ship, the battleship on which they will be there. So to walk in noisy, friendless cities with streets so crowded that he was frightened to cross them. So we will do the explanation till here today, children, and then further in the one by one in our this virtual class, even in as in the form of videos, I'll be uploading the explanation of the whole chapter. Thank you, children.